Record. All right, 3, 2, 1. Um, Welcome. I'm going to talk to you about how I compose an EDM song with samples and loops and things like that. Now, there are many ways to write a song. Sometimes I use my guitar and start off that way and play naturally and then play bass and then lay down everything in audio. Sometimes I use MIDI instruments. You'll see a little bit of that later today. Sometimes I use AI and then I enhance with that. Now, when I use loops or AI or anything like that, I have to get a dopamine rush to have my own creation. And basically, I need to be as original as I can be to get that dopamine rush and feel like I've actually accomplished something. Now, some people can use samples and loops royalty free right off there and just create karaoke tracks. It's not very cool in the industry to use unmodified samples and things like that and then call them your own. It happens too much. It happens a lot. But these royalty free samples are meant to be sampled and cut up and resampled and cut up and spliced up and pitch shifted and all kinds of different manipulations to happen to them, different combinations, things like that. So, you get a pack and you download them, and often you have to pay a couple of dollars for them, and it does add up. So let's say I get electro metal, and it just gives me an idea of what kind of style of song I want to use. And, I could just use all of these samples as is. I could click in the kick dance here, and the snare, and the tops, and the bass. And there I have a little beat. It's a bit loud. And I can modify a little bit. And make a song out of that. But that wouldn't be too original, and I wouldn't dare risking producer purgatory hell by putting out all of these sample packs and saying, hey, it's my own tune. But if I wanted to make a karaoke to sing along with, or I just wanted to DJ off the top of my, just at a party where I'm not getting paid, then sure, I've got these things. But this program is much more sophisticated and you can do a lot more with it. So when I make an actual original EDM song, I'll be taking some of these samples, right? And save me a lot of time finding stuff or creating stuff. I can't stand making beats from scratch. I've done it. I do enjoy more, and you'll see a little bit of that, making sequences from scratch of instruments. But usually I just take drum beats and mix them together and have a beat that I like. But even that can be a process which gets a little more toward originality, though I have to admit I'm still heavily relying on samples to do that. But the first thing I do is I would make my own. There's many ways to do it. But basically I make my own copy, because in this program you can mix and match samples. And then basically I would go to the edit window. And where is it here? There's different things in the edit window. I can actually edit to modify the actual symbol, the actual waveforms of the drums and make them my own. And I can pitch shift the speed and all kinds of stuff. I know that the song I've been using is actually at 136 as my tempo. I usually have lyric plans set out and some idea of what kind of a structure the song's going to be. That's for another video. But here what I did is I basically custom made all of these beats by going into the different packs, and I basically went to each pack and I went through and I thought, what kind of bass sound do I want? What kind of song do I want? And I wanted kind of a heavy industrial electro sound with old school drums. I don't like using 808s and stuff like that. I am an old school guy. So there's my bass sample. No, not what I want. Not for this song. Oh yeah, that's cool, but not for this song. Okay. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What I would do is actually I would start looking through all of the drum samples I have, and percussions as well. And I could use hits. If I really wanted to do the sequence stuff, I would get hits. But for this song, I didn't want to do hits. I didn't want to sequence the drums. I actually wanted to sequence the instruments instead and have the drums as loops. You can do it any way you want. So I went through a whole bunch of drums. That's just a hit. I'm not going to use that unless I'm sequencing. But I wanted just a loop of drums already. Some loops are pretty simple, and I went for a lot of those more simple ones because I like to have a separate kick in my mix. And eventually I came up with you can drag and drop them in, and eventually I came up with these kick combinations, and then I went through and I found a whole bunch of snares, so I can go down here and check out all the different snares and from different packs. And this it took a couple of days to find what I wanted to mix together. So basically here I have a kick crisp from one pack and a snare from another. How do they go together? That sounds really weird. I don't know why. It doesn't sound like that in my recording. That's better. And that was the main. Eventually I decided on a main kick because I don't want to change the kick sound too much. But I do change up the snares a bit. So I had to go through and find stuff that's a little bit deeper snare. Wow, that's a weird snare. I'm going to actually unload that one. I don't know what that's doing in there. I don't think I used it. So now I have different snares with different beats. And, in my mind, I'm going to plan out, I want to use this for the chorus. And I want to use this one for the break. If you don't know the parts of an EDM song, you should study up on those because there's a certain format or a combination of formats you can use. But, you got your verses, you got your break, you have your intro, you have your rise, but you don't have to use all of those. Now, I'm actually writing this for a vocal song, so I'm using verse and chorus as well as breaks. So that would be something I'd use for a break. That would be something I'd use for the drop, which is more intense. And then I might have a break with just a kick. I might use that for a drop if I feel like a whole different kick. Notice I've added kicks to my kicks on this level. And the way it works is everything, I can only trigger one on each column. Now I can change all that around and change the arrangement. But that's the way it works. I trigger one kick, one snare, and then I can add a secondary kick to the snare if I want to. And just have that kick come in. And then I can get my shakers going. And if I want to clap, some hi-hats. Now we're getting pretty complicated here. So when I build a song, I would basically build it gradually up. I'd use some of the conventions of EDM and, start with a kick and then mix them together. I'd make up a plan once I have all this sorted out. And then basically I would go over to the song section. Well, I'd put my recording. I would decide to record to not master audio, but to the song. And this actually has a DAW in it, a primitive kind of DAW. It's not that primitive, actually. But basically I would record, there's my kicks and there's my snare and there's my extra snare and there's my shaker, and there it is. I have all of that mixed together. I'd record it, and the other thing is I can go in and copy and paste and manipulate if I don't like something, right? I actually took out that snare that I didn't like because it sounded very weird. That's okay. I've already recorded the bed tracks for this. And I often, do a sequence and then I copy a bunch of stuff. Like this is the verse, the kick nuttin' is the verse. And then I'd go copy it later and then I'd copy it after the next verse and so on and so on. Right? So there's my kick stores and I know that that's my intro and then I know that that's also my first verse. And I replicated that over on this part. And then I'd add different shakers and stuff to it. As the song got more complex, I might layer more complex stuff to it. Yeah, in fact, you can hear at the end, here's how crazy it gets. Right? Now, less is more, so I often go in and I throw in the kitchen sink and then I take out stuff. Very interesting. And that's it. I have my jump sequence all laid out, and then what I can do is I can go into the share module and I could export it into stems, which are each track separately, which is really useful to use in another DAW and refine. And I can I could do a rough mix from here, or I could just do an entire audio mix if I want to export it. I'm not going to show that right now, so I'm going to stop that export. And well, what I want to show you next is, okay, I've got all the drums down and I recorded them first, and then what I did is I went to the drum section and I picked out, this shouldn't be called drum section, this should be called samples section. And what I did is I found a whole bunch of different samples from about 3 different packs that I wanted to use for my song. So I think I went to Cosmo Electro, and now I just wanted to find out synth sounds and things like that. And I wanted guitar sounds, and I had electro metal electric guitar sounds. I play electric guitar, so I'll probably add. But I just wanted some hits. So I selected a whole bunch of hits and from different instruments. There's my guitar hits. And what I did is I actually went in and edited them so I could retune them, so that circle hit, I copy and pasted, and then I wanted different sounds for them. So I actually went in and edited them. I don't know if I remember how I edited them right now. Oh yeah, here we go. There's the waveform. Yeah, and I can change the quality of the sound of the hit. And that didn't sound like too much, but that didn't sound like too much either. Am I doing the right one? There we go. And I can change the pitch, and that's pitch shifting. So now I have low, middle, low again. My bass hits. And I took a lot of time to tune them to each other because I want about 3 different chords of hits to do that. So I got all these different things. Stop. I don't know how that's going to stop, but yeah. And eventually I went around here and I made sequences. So what you do is you get a sequence, you make a new one, and then you have all your instruments here. And for this sequence, I just wanted the bass. So if I play that sequence, and then there's another bass sequence. All right. All right, now I can actually go and start playing my loops, I think. If I play my song, yeah. Now the sound quality, I don't know how it's going to be through OBS, but it's pretty amazing through my own head speakers. And I could start playing my sequences and practicing. Yeah. That's a bit much. All right, so I'm gonna go back into my song here. Have a little intro. Nothing's recording yet, but as soon as I hit record, that's gonna go down. And you can see my sequence is forming here. Yep. And I can go in and edit them around. And I can step sequence this whole thing if I wanted to. Right? I can change the length of these things. Let's make it bigger. Bigger. Oh, I don't have my a really good mouse for that right now. And very carefully I want to edit so that I get the right number of bars and stuff like that. So I can have my loops. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I only want 8 bars. And boy, this is not cooperating with me right now to get it exactly where I want it to. I think I have to take the snap off. I'm not going to bore you with all that. But I'd work on that a little bit. So when I'm ready for my next sequence, I could play back a little bit. Oh, really something wrong with this program right now. It's out of sync like crazy. Yeah, there's something in the settings that isn't quite going right. But basically, I record down my sequence until I had an entire song happening. And yeah, this weird thing. Maybe because did I move these? That's better. That's a lot better. I must have moved them by accident. Syncing is everything, right? There is a way to zoom in. And I'm ready for another sequence, right? Go back to sequence. Hook up something else. Whoa, that sounds awful. I would rehearse which ones to put together. That sounds awful. One of these is not great. Which one is it here? Now I have a mixing board here too, so I can actually figure out which one has to go. I don't hear that awful one anymore. Wonder what happened to it. I find that's a lot, right? So I might... Interesting. The mixing board isn't that great. Um, it, if you mix from here, it mixes different channels together, and I don't like that. So what I do is after I get all my everything ready, I basically mix down to stems, and then I put my stems in another DAW, and that's for another video. But basically, that's how I go through the process. It takes many, many hours, you know. I get my loops together, and they could be instrument loops, and I could do the drums in the sequencer. But in this case, I did my drums in the loop section. Then I went and got my sounds from different packs and mixed them together. And then I put those sounds into sequences, right? And I forgot to talk about the sequencer, but let's talk about this guitar ride hit just for a sec. Let's just do that one. All right, so that's the hit by itself. And if I play that sequence, and then I can go in and actually I only had this. I just wanted to, right? And if you notice, there are two different pitch shifts. So what I can actually go in is go in and edit those. Whoops. There's so many different devices here. Go into edit and make sure I've hit that one. And I can edit their velocity, so the second one's a little less. Right? The velocity is like volume. I can offset it to make it sound a little more human, so it's a little more not synchronized to the beat. You have to, I can sometimes change the duration of it. That didn't work very much. But here's the big thing. There, that's what I want. I can change the pitch, and I can go into another sequence, and then if I have the right instrument, I can go in and change that and sequence it. So how this works, I'm not going to get too much detail, but these are based 4 beats, 4 beats, 4 beats, 4 beats. I've set them to quarter notes, so I have 16 quarter notes in one bar, I believe. No, 16th notes. Okay, I have 16 different hits in one bar, so that would be 16 notes, 16 in one bar, right? It's not playing my guitar hit for some reason. Now getting these So learning how to sequence is an art in itself. You get some books. You're doing it with drum patterns. It's nice to get a drum pattern book and actually lay down a sequence like that. So what I like to do is put one instrument per sequence, maybe two, because when this goes into the song, it creates a different track for each instrument, which is basically really good for mixing, which we're going to get to in part 2. So that's the Reverb Live thing. I would export them into different stems and as AIF or .wave files, and I'd have one track for each one, and then I would line them up and everything, and I'll show you that in part 2.